Thank you all so much for coming to this Brownbag today. I'm Katrina Bennett, an intern at the Shaw Wellness Institute. Shaw Wellness has worked closely with the leaders of the network, Madison Falk and Danny Pooter, to organize this event. Today we have John Edgar and Rochelle Robinson with us, who are both victims of violence advocates. They will present on the topic of relationship violence, warning signs of relationship violence, how to intervene as a bystander, and finally the new types of services and support that may be available at Colgate in the future. The format today will be a presentation by John and Rochelle, followed by Q&A. In addition, we want to make it clear that this presentation could have the potential to be triggering to some people. So please do what you need to take care of yourself. There's no counselor present today, but should you need to talk to someone, there's help available from the counseling center. Appointments can be made via phone, or you can also drop by Conan House between 8:30 to 12 p.m. and 1:30 to 5 during weekdays. They have brief intake appointments in the afternoons between 1:30 and 4:30. For emergencies not during the hours of the center, a counselor is always on call and can be reached by calling campus safety. We want to make it clear that relationship violence is never the fault of the victim. I'm very happy to have the chance to have John and Rochelle share this important information with you. On behalf of Shaw Wellness Institute, WIMS, and the network, please join me in welcoming John and Rochelle.
Thank you. That's so well done. Really formal. I'll take it though. I tend to be more of a relaxed person. We got a small group today. I certainly look forward to people that jump in when you want to, when you have some curiosities or questions, and we'll do our best to lend you information that we have. But it's always a piece of ours that when we start out, no matter where we are, it could be Colgate, it could be, one of, the local schools, law enforcement trainings, whatever we're doing, we cover the basics of what we do, okay, what our services encompass, okay. To give you an idea, the Victims of Violence program covers this county, Madison County, okay, and there's a program in almost every county in New York State. So if you happen to travel, and let's say you want to go visit a friend that's down near the city, or let's say Orange County, they have a comprehensive program down there for crime victims, rape, sexual assault, domestic violence, dating violence. If you go to Buffalo and you're visiting somebody at BU, there's folks there, and they have their own county's project. But they all have the same basic elements, okay? So this is what we cover, and it's not a comprehensive list. Where's my card? Yes. This is basically what you'll find from project to project, and it's important because whenever people come from different areas, travel, they really need to know what's around and how they access it. So many of those programs, those crime victims programs, they have a 24-hour hotline. And what that looks like is you call that hotline, or a friend, a family member, doesn't matter really who it is, but they can call it and be confidential. That word carries a specific meaning. That means that you don't have to use your real name. You can give a fake name. They're quite used to it. They've been running for the last 30 years. And what they care about is giving accurate information based on what that person's reported, so that they can make their own best decisions. So confidentiality is definitely something that is described and very particular. It's covered by state law, it's covered by federal law, so there's nothing requiring anybody to do anything. They can call and get their information. So for our program, we run a 24-hour hotline that runs around the clock every single day of the year. These folks are trained at being able to scoop up and help guide people to give them accurate information so that they can make their own best decisions. So that's what you should find from county to county. Doesn't matter the age of the person, 72 down to 13, doesn't matter. For our program, we provide information referrals to local resources. We're able to talk about what those local resources are in a bulleted form. We provide, obviously, support, emotional support, empathy. Everybody's experience is their own, and it's valid. We provide accompaniment services, and what that means is if somebody needs to go to, let's say, a court date, and they want help, education, like what does that look like? What does it mean for me? We're that resource to inform people. This is what these steps look like. This is how many different courts there are in this county, different types of courts, so that they can make their own best decisions. We do medical accompaniment, and that could mean somebody might have injured themselves in the course of a crime. They're, have some type of long-standing injury or something, minor in injury, but they need to have it checked out. Anything all the way up to rape and sexual assault, and we guide people through that process. We have support groups. We do crisis counseling, and what that looks like is anywhere from 1 to 4, maybe 6 visits as people are trying to work through what they see as their issue, and they're able to come to some idea of conclusions for themselves. We also do community education programs, and that's a really wide open field. That can be everything from going into a kindergarten class, pre-K class, local community supports, to, like one of our yearly trainings is done in conjunction with the district attorney's office, and we train all senior law enforcement personnel. We help people with New York State crime victim applications, and we help people with court petitions. We do adult and child therapy, all related to any type of crime, doesn't matter when it was committed. Could have been years ago, could have been an uncle of somebody who committed a crime. We provide that service. And then we also have volunteer opportunities. So this hot little card, I'm hoping that you're beginning to find in different places around the campus. So look for it at the counseling center maybe, Shaw Wellness. One of my favorite places is the fitness center, because everybody tends to funnel through those places. But be looking for this. We are leaving these here today. Please feel free to bring one. Wherever you go in your travels, pass it out so that you guys have access or know somebody that may be interested in that stuff. So that's our basic services. And again, you should find that from county to county. There are a few counties out of the 62 entities in New York State. There's a few that don't have fully developed projects, but they are developing. One of them is to the south of us, and that's Shenango County. But there's very few of those projects that are in the state of flux. Other than that, all the 5 boroughs, 62 counties are covered. So today, we're looking at relationship violence, partner violence, but there's 2 sides to that coin. So for us, I like to look at the bookends, which is like, what are those things that we look for, that people aspire to in relationships, whether you've been in a relationship, thinking about a relationship, could be somebody you just met that you want to take that relationship deeper with, or it's been long-standing, it's over a year, could be developing into more. What are those good things that we all look for? And so that's one end of the spectrum that we can give. And then the other is well, what are those things that we want to look out for that may not be so good, that helps us give an anchor? It's an anchor point for us to say, oh, there's something I want to stay away from. Here's another anchor point. This is what I want to be closer to. Helps define goals. And that's, our main focus today. So, you want to jump in?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So when Katrina approached me and our staff regarding the topic today, I definitely took some time to think about the population that I was working with, and maybe you can look at me and notice that I am very close in age with you guys. I just graduated last May, so I kind of feel like I am you still. I don't know. It's hard kind of transitioning into like the adult working world because I kind of just identify with both sides. But so I look at this and I consider what some of the warning signs are that we could look for in ourselves and in our friends, even family members or coworkers, close people to us. So I think that these kind of go across the board in some ways. When I look at other warning signs for like, suicide or depression or things of that nature. They're all very related, but, they can look differently depending on the situation. So, just, I have a list here, so I'll just kind of run down that. What I have is isolation, so tactics to remove someone from their supports, whether it be family, friends, coworkers, whoever they identify with. Other warning signs could be choosing who you hang out with and when, which really goes with isolation. Kind of being a delegate as to when you can go, when you can stay, things like that. And maybe this kind of is more prevalent now in our age where we're really connected with our social media. So, someone possibly micromanaging the accounts, wanting to know your passwords, wanting to know who you're texting, who you're Snapchatting, who you're, I don't know what else there is, Instagramming, different stuff like that, can kind of play into modern time relationships that maybe weren't like that back 5 years ago. Things have really developed over the years. So, withdrawing from normal activities, being checked up on, so like frequent phone calls and texts, someone who's like triple and quadruple texting and saying, what's going on, where are you, why are you answering me?
Hammering.
Right.
Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah, and just being very persistent and with that kind of communication. Feeling pressure to try to please their partner, so perhaps someone is saying, oh well, I really don't like your hair like that, you should do something else, or I don't like when you wear that shirt, it's too low cut, or whatever the person might be saying at the time. Temper, someone has a temper, or jealousy or possessiveness, those are traits that can be associated with warning signs of relationship violence. Low self-esteem, signs of depression and anxiety, not going anywhere without their partner, so kind of feeling like you have to be together and you have to be, connected and interacting at all times. Withdrawing from family and friends, so maybe not making your weekly or daily phone call to your mom or your dad or whoever, and just saying hi. Maybe that's becoming less frequent.
Can I jump in there?
Yeah, absolutely.
There's two different pieces with that. One, isolation, being isolated from somebody by a partner, where they limit your access to them. And then there's another part of that, which is that you start to, just out of, it's easier not to go to family and friends. You isolate yourself. And so those are two of the same things, but they behave differently. One person has begun to limit you and start blocking you off and isolating you. And then the secondary is a little bit more removed, where you start making those choices. And so this is a good inventory to be able to look at that and say, do I have this? If I'm in a relationship, is there a difference between, well, I see this, or yes, I'm seeing this? And so that's usually a good flag to say, okay, I can reach out. Where can I reach out to discuss this further if I'm confused about points? Because that's never a bad thing. Be able to run it by somebody. Trusted supports. Access to supports like here, right on campus. So I just wanted to define those 2 points.
Thanks.
Yep.
Some of the last few that I have is limiting access to money or vehicle or other means of transportation or things of that nature, which I don't know how frequently that occurs in our population, but it definitely could be prevalent. And then missing activities or classes without really giving a solid explanation, kind of coming up with something generic, or again, that kind of pairs in with the withdrawing piece of not engaging in things that you were engaging in previously. And then the last one is bruising in obscure places or frequent injuries with the excuse of accidents. So that's my list that I came up with. I'm sure that you folks have other ideas or things that might look a little bit different on your campus. But I mean, that's a pretty comprehensive list of a lot of the different warning signs that I, could think of, so.
Here's something that's important about what Rochelle is offering, is that today we live in a different age where all of this information is so accessible. It's almost overwhelming. You can find these lists, these characteristics across the whole spectrum of websites. You have unique apps that you can put on your phone that can serve as a singular purpose for supports regarding partner violence. And so something that can be an anchor to you, and I always think of anchors. Those are safety points that people can go to when they feel like they've been treading water too long or they're swimming, is you're going to see these wheels, okay? You can pull this wheel up anywhere on the internet, okay? And there's multiple forms, but let me give you a brief explanation of this. This is what's called the self-identification tool. You'll find it in California, you'll find it all the way in New York, and every spot in between, and it's used by domestic violence programs, rape crisis, sexual assault programs, and the purpose of it is it was designed years and years and years ago by the initial project out in Duluth, Minnesota. So there's your history on it. But how it really runs is that somebody would come in the door, impromptu, walking off the street, and they would say, this is going on, and this is really heavy. But they didn't want to talk about details. They wanted to, they were confronted with that struggle. They were like, how do I deal with this? But I don't want to talk about this super private stuff with a stranger. So this was formed, okay? And in the center, you'll find different forms. You'll find either power and control, or when love hurts, relationship violence. And what's described around the wheel are the different forms of violence within a relationship. Could be a marriage, could be dating relationship, but these things you slide over to the person and say, read this over. Don't say anything out loud. Just see what your inner voice tells you. And if you're able to definitely agree with this one, and some of these, and some of this, then me as a skilled counselor, I can say to that person, no matter what you're identifying, you've identified it. You know what's going on with you. You don't have to talk about those things, but you know inside your own relationship some of the things that are going on. It's starting to give organization. So the things that you would see around this wheel: financial violence, manipulation of funds, either access to or making you totally responsible to be, getting funds. Another one would be isolation. Another one might be manipulation of children. Another one would be verbal violence, and that's usually where things occur. Verbal abuse, pretty straightforward. Someone who's yelling and screaming to someone who is refusing to speak with you for a long period of time. That's another form of verbal abuse. Then there's emotional abuse. So that's how these wheels actually function. And usually on the outside, the black rim, you're going to find the heaviest types of abuses, whether they're physical or sexual in nature. And then a person can sit down and look at it and say, yes, okay, I see some of that. All right, that makes sense to me. The good thing is that there's the ideal.
Can I say something real quick?
Yeah, jump in.
Sometimes, and maybe you guys can kind of identify with this, is once you kind of say something out loud to someone, it becomes very much more real. And maybe someone's just quite not ready to do that, but by using that wheel there, and we present it to clients when we meet with them, it's just, take a look at this. I mean, you don't have to talk to me about it, just as John said, you can kind of just look at it, think about it in your own head. Maybe some people find it better to just go through with a highlighter or a pencil or something and underline or highlight stuff. And that can kind of help them understand, what has been going on with them, and they can talk about it when they feel that they're ready. But for now, this is, what they can use to kind of
I've used it
identify.
many times, thousands of times over my last 25 years. I can tell you that one of my strongest advantages with people is to be able to slide that to them and say, you can take it with you. You can throw it out in a basket. When you get some private time, you can break it out and go through it yourself. That's totally up to you. If you want to go through it now, that's fine too. It gives the power back to the individual, and that's where it belongs. It belongs with that person, not with me, not with some other entity or other resource. I get to make my own decisions, you know, and if I want to disclose this, then I do. And if I'm not ready to, I can look at it later. And that's the beginning point. So, the other side of that is the equality wheel. This is also the other half of the wheel that was developed well over, you know, close to 30 years ago. And you'll see equality in the middle, and then you see, you know, identifiers of those things that people look for in those positive and developing relationships. I don't care if it's been a month. I don't care if it's been a few dates or it's been 5 years. You know, trust and support, respect, non-threatening behavior, negotiation and fairness. You know, another form that people use is agree to disagree and have that be respected. Shared responsibility, responsible parenting, honesty and accountability. So these wheels here, we're leaving today. We want you to have this information. If I had my way, I like the plain idea where I have thousands and I just get to kick them out the door, you know.
I mean,
Access
copies, like if
Yes.
you wanna distribute these at any point, I mean, they're not, you know, they're not ours, they were developed by, you know, that one was developed by Duluth, and actually, I mean, like, the original model comes from that, but the ones, the When Love Hurts, and I have 2 others that are, I'll talk about in a minute, but those are actually developed by a professor at SUNY Oneonta, and also I think it was another professional at SU. So they did a presentation together, and I actually found them on the internet, and I was like, these are fantastic. I reached out to the professor and was like, can I please have these in like a better copy? And she was like, absolutely, take them. And when I started to really look at them, I was like, these are really perfect, and they're actually, you know, geared towards college students, so it makes it easier to identify with, as opposed to looking at something where, you know, some of the factors might not necessarily fit with you or what you're going through. So I like those a lot.
There's lots of them. Don't feel like you're going to get buried by them. There's lots of good wheels out there, and that's a natural outgrowth of, you know, our field over the last 30 years. There's wheels for LGBTQ, you know, new relationships, lengthy traditional relationships, whatever the case may
Wheels in
be.
Spanish.
Dating violence, yes.
Sure, yeah.
And you know, the address is down in the corner. So before, you know, I kind of back up and, you know, let's open it up for discussion or whatever. Realize that no matter where anybody goes, the strength is in the power of knowledge, you know? So people are always able to call us on the phone. It is that easy. You pick up the phone, you dial, you are connected with an advocate to process. Whether it's you or you talking about a friend or an aunt and uncle or whomever, whether you give a name or not give a name, one of the primary arms is that we're looking at people being informed. They make their decisions whenever they're ready, and that's the power that belongs with them. We also look at safety planning. That's a big piece. Every project from here to California and back, you know, there's a specific model that you follow about safety planning, which is the professional about the relationship is the person in the relationship. The professional about the system's response belongs with the professional that's answering the phone. So people are able to keep their rights, keep their element of choice. So those are 2 things that we're absolutely doing every time, and we're going the speed of that person. There is no vested interest in us only for safety and information. The power, you know, people retain their power and their ability. So that can look as simple as grabbing a phone, making a phone call,
At any time.
and beginning that conversation, you know? And that's where all those things, the access to our services on our white card, our RAC card, that's where it all begins. To give you an idea of the volume of calls that we deal with per year, it can be anywhere in any given year, 700 to 1,400. Everybody from, you know, 80 on down to a young child. I had a young child call earlier this week. So those are the things we cover. We've always been here. We have responded to all the area colleges before, and we want to be that, you know, that positive confidential support to Colgate. So aside from that, remember this information is here today. The RAC cards, the wheels, you can access them. If you run out, copy them. You want more? call us, we'll take that, you know? What types of questions come up for you as a group? I see we're hitting close to the 30-minute mark here. Yeah.
Do you mostly find that it's the individual themselves who call in for help, or if it's a friend or a family member?
All.
Yeah.
The question was, do you find if it's just the individual, or is it extended family members or friends? And, you know, our hotline runs 24 hours a day. We constantly talk about hotline calls, and it's all spectrums. Friends, family members, acquaintances.
Law enforcement, hospital staff.
Yes, law enforcement, you name it, lawyers, whatever. So, other thoughts? Questions that may be arising? Yeah.
So I'm like not super up to date with this, but is there a victims of violence advocate on campus once a week on Fridays, or is there gonna be? And would they, if they were, would they deal with specific types of violence or like everything?
Great question. One of the things that every college and university has had to wrestle with this year is the new Enough is Enough legislation. It's a law that was recently released. And every college has to develop that. And every college is fervently creating systems, looking at personnel to be able to provide that particular service to their student bodies. And there's a bunch of language in there about how they connect with the current local programs that have been doing it for 30 years. So that's the basic age of our movement, is, you know, it's a little over 30 years. And how that gets packaged is comprehensive, really detailed, has to be well thought out, needs a system in place. And so I can assure you that all the area colleges from New York City all the way out to Buffalo are working on that daily. When you start a brand new system and you say, here's the law and you have to start right now, that's really difficult. That's also unusual. That's not a usual thing, where somebody says, here's a brand new law, you don't have an infrastructure, but now you have to deploy one and have it be functioning and running. And the good thing is that every college in New York State has been and has had access to those victim services, those individuals that have been doing it for this long, because there's one in every county. There's access. They can get it at any point of access. So if somebody had, whether it's a law enforcement issue, they need to go to court, that information is available at any of those juncture points. Local hospitals, community memorial. I know they have our rec cards. So the access point is there. We want to make sure that you know that it is as simple as being able to pick up that phone and have that conversation. And that's where it's beginning this year. This year is the benchmark year, 2016. Every single county is bringing that up to speed and developing their infrastructure. So great question. Other thoughts? I can totally do this, the silence thing. We talk about tough stuff. So sometimes I sit back and I wait for some of that to bubble up because people are thinking. Yes?
So you were saying before that this is a New York State benchmark year, but is this like also going on nationally?
Well, that's a good point. It started kind of as a grassroots, people were identifying issues, and it started on the West Coast. There really wasn't any particular mandates. That's what sets New York apart, as New York said, we see the problem, we're done with it. That's why they called it Enough is Enough. They developed skilled work groups last January, and they had everybody from every discipline involved. So people from the college environment, people from victim program services and policymaking, law enforcement, university police, DAs, across the spectrum. That work group then developed the language that they really needed to see, which was, here's an easy one. What does it look like when you're dealing with a case that has alcohol involved? Well, that's actually been going on for many years, but people want to see language on that. How is it treated unilaterally? So if you're at Buffalo, or if you're at RIT, or if you're in this county. So that's what those work groups were designed to do, was hammer out the Bill of Rights to students, to hammer out the language behind alcohol and drug issues, and then looking at systems development. So it started on the West Coast and it eased this way within a calendar year. New York said, well, we'll make it a firm start. Bang, here you are. This is happening, and it happens quickly from January until the end of the semester. They polished up, a lot of the language, and then they released it at the end of July. The amount of work that went into that and how fast that was stunning to me, somebody who's worked in this field for 24 years. So here we are, and now it's impacting us in a formal way.
So if I've said, if I've noticed some of the red flags that you were mentioning before, I guess, what can I do as a friend of someone who's seeing those red flags in a relationship?
So, yeah,
Great
that is a good question, because sometimes that's like the spot where you feel like it's best to kind of jump in. It's like, a good friend of yours or whatever, and you want to see them, happy and doing well and having healthy things in their life. So I do have other stuff here for more wheels, which we love wheels. I've said that like 100 times. We love wheels. But I do have a couple of specific wheels for people who are considered bystanders in a situation. And so some of the ways that, as a bystander or a friend or family member or whatever, that you can know when or how to kind of jump in or say something.
Isn't that the toughest part of the job?
Yeah.
People naturally question themselves, like, where do I do? Where and when do I do? How do I do? That's all based on safety. What do you personally feel safe with? Some of the information that we disseminate to folks is that I see support from family all the time when a victim comes in. And they're there and they're like, support to them looks like, don't let me get near this person. They feel very defensive. I like to see support demonstrated through a particular behavior, which is I listen to my friend. I acknowledge their feelings. I'm able to reach out and say, well, if you need to call me, I'm not going to give you any judgment, no matter what you're choosing. I'm here, I'm not leaving, and you can say your story to me, and I'm not going to give you what I think you should do. I'm going to affirm your good choices. And that's positive support. It's not picking sides and saying this person can come to me when they're ready on their terms. Their terms. I'm not checking and saying this is okay or this is not okay, because that tends to box people out. And we want to be supportive of our friends. We want to be protective of them. And I have, I guess this is a shameless plug, but I will say it. I have 2 teen daughters that I am absolutely prepping for college. We're doing college visits. We're looking at what schools, fit them. And that's a regular topic of conversation in my household. This is definitely not lost on me. As a father, I want to see my daughters thrive in safety. And so how does that behave? So you got to know that they're getting the wheel. Yes, Dad, one more wheel, I know. No, just give me a minute. Give me 5 minutes. I swear to God, I love you. It's okay to inject some humor, and at the same time, you're getting some information.
Yeah.
So the support, bystander pieces, I implore you, reach out to them. We have some information here with us. But positive support can be simple. It is non-judgmental. It is accepting of that friend. It's also, believe it or not, it's reading off that rack card. There's professionals out there that do this.
I was gonna say, knowing when your role as a friend has kind of become a little bit too much for you to handle, and that's what we're here for. Is we're here to support you, your friend. Whoever reaches out to us, and knowing that you don't have to you don't have to be like the person that just takes it all on. I mean, we all have our own stuff, so, knowing when to, pass that information out there or let them know about our services or, however you feel it's appropriate to reach out.
Boundaries are huge.
Yes.
Because when you're looking at support, you're also looking at safety. When you're dealing with relationships, the negative side, you're always talking about safety. And how do people get to safety? And then, positive relationships, well, that's a celebration. You get to see that, in real life. People who are totally enjoying themselves, things are really growing, and that's fantastic. But we have to know both ends. We have to. We're there in celebration, we're there not in good times. So demonstrating safety can be getting them to a counselor that's close, a therapist. Or it can be reaching out to a hotline. Simple as dialing a number, talking about safety, talking about support. As long as people can get there, stuff can happen in their speed.
Something that I've noticed, especially at Colgate as a small school, is what happens when there are mutual friends. So the person you want to reach out to, both the victim and, I don't want to necessarily say perpetrator, but how do you serve as a friend when you know both people?
Great question. This is where things get difficult. People have to back up, and it makes them think. And we all deserve time to think. That's probably one of my biggest assets in my arsenal of trying to deal with things, is stepping back and taking time to think about, how do I demonstrate support if I have two friends that aren't getting along? And there's a difference between abuse and getting along. And so if I'm not sure, well, I need to take time and step back. And sometimes it takes me a while. I need to step back for a day, look at these things. Maybe I need to reach out to other friends. And I talk about folks with my needed resources. And I practice that regularly. I reach out to my team. I don't talk about names. I reach out to professionals because people are the main resource. When I connect with you, I'm also connected to your resources. When you connect to me, you also have access to my resources. Think about when you need a ride. Well, I know you have a car. I don't know if you have a car, but I'm just saying. But I got a car, it's working, I can get you a ride. It's an easy example, but it demonstrates that sometimes, people want answers, they want them immediately, but a want is very different from what you can actually demonstrate. So reaching out to your supports is big. It's huge. You can do it confidentially. You don't have to name names, but get connected to people. That's where strength and safety is built. We spend a lot of time in our end of our work. One of the first things that we do, whether it's Rochelle at the DA's office, myself back at the main office, and at the hospital, I'm talking about building support systems. If I see people who have two people, I need to talk about that right then, right there. Because before they leave, I need to make sure that they have contacts to 5 or 6. Because that means they're in touch with the other people's resources. There's higher potential safety. So I know that's not a direct answer, but some things aren't a direct answer. You need time to step back, and don't you deserve that? Yeah.
What is the best way to intervene as a bystander if you feel that if a relationship is mutually violent?
Yes, I hear that phrase a lot. Mutually violent. What do you do when you think it's mutually violent and you're a bystander? I'm not a big fan of mutual violence because that places responsibility on both parties as if they're equal. I'm not a believer in violence. Period. It started somewhere. I'm not looking to blame folks. I'm looking for safety. So if I'm not sure and I'm feeling conflicted, that's my first red flag. I feel conflicted. I know right now, for me, I need to connect with Rochelle. And I've called her over at the DA's office. Said, I got this running down. Can you help me out? I reach out to another coworker. Let's say it's on the personal side. I talk it through with a friend. You see the common denominator here is communication. It is not kept to me. I communicate, I leave things out of it, and I'm always looking at safety. Safety is paramount. So I don't know what you assess as mutual violence, but you can bet that one of my first questions to you would be, well, can you tell me what that looks like? Describe it from your point of view. Then, we're starting to get somewhere. Somebody might say there's lots of arguing, maybe there's lots of silence and lots of tension, or maybe it's physical, totally overt, but I have to hear your description. So. Other thoughts, questions? Here's what I'd like to do. Usually these discussions, they generate thoughts for later, okay? People think about them. Today's a great day because it's Friday. People want to let go. I totally get it. But at the same token, you're going to be thinking about it. You'll think about friends. You'll think about family, Do you guys have a break coming up? Oh, you lucky dogs, okay. So, in any event, this issue is going to, it's going to sit there and simmer, Don't think that a simple question is a reason why you can't call a hotline. That's one of the main reasons why I'm not big on hotline, but that's where it came out of grassroots. It doesn't have to be an emergency to call. You can call, run down, get some information, and based on what you're reporting, somebody is a good, neutral third party to be able to say, well, this is what I hear you saying. They're skilled at being able to guide some of that conversation and say, have you thought about these pieces? I heard you say X, Y, and Z. And so our hotline at 366-5000, easy number. Reach out to it, ask the question, what is the worst that you get? Information, somebody being empathic, supportive, informing you of stuff, You might get one good thing out of that conversation, or maybe you might not get anything good at that time, but you feel like somebody heard you. And coming away from that, doesn't that feel good? So I implore you, as things ruminate and simmer, a week from now, thought comes to you, give us a buzz. That's what we're there for.
And plus, what an advantage that, the people that you might interact with here at school or at home or whatever, they know you at some capacity, whereas we, as, as we are working the hotline and doing our job, we don't know you. We might not even know your name, because if that's how you choose to proceed with your call, that's fine. But, you can see that as an advantage to the point where, we really are like is the word objective, right?
We're
In the
neutral,
sense that we
can't
are
judge
literally,
it.
we are very neutral. So, you know what I mean? It's just, you can look at that as definitely a good way to get more comfortable reaching out.
It is not possible to judge. We don't, I had a confidential call earlier in the week that's still ringing with me, and I had no idea in my thoughts where to place this person, and that was absolutely a working, functional thing for that person, because I was able to say, I don't know you, but I'm hearing you say this. I heard you. And, that changed the flavor of the conversation. It held some meaning to them because their tension came down. Their verbal output wasn't so fast, it was slow. Their voice wasn't high, it was more calm. They were able to, within, 5 to 7 minutes, have a more fluid conversation as to peaks and valleys and jumping, starting and stopping. Something was happening. And so that was a good thing. I'm willing to bet, I think they're going to call back again. So, definitely, anonymity serves a purpose. So we're going to leave this information here, and there's one little piece of information that I think is important. Rochelle pulled this up, dating Bill of Rights. I caution you, don't be dismissive. It's simple, but there is a truth in here. I have the right to refuse a date without feeling guilty. I know it's basic, but you are somebody's aunt, somebody's uncle, You're you know, a family member, somebody's daughter, somebody's son. You know, I know that when I leave my house, I absolutely think of my daughters and I'm like, where are they? Is it going okay? I hope their day is good. I worry about them.
This is catchphrase, I hope your day is good.
I do that on every email. Hope it is a good one. You know? But these are good things. They're simple to pass out, easy to digest, nice benchmarks, little anchors along the way. So feel free to grab those. Other questions or comments? I know I certainly appreciate getting the opportunity to come here, you know, whether it's 5 people or 500. Recently I was here for the Jenna monologues, and I walked into Donovan's, and that night was a train wreck of a winter night. I was like, I planned an hour and a half ahead of time, and I really hope I make it there on time. And I walk in, it was blazing hot, freezing outside, tons of people. I was like, this is a great place, you know? I wanted to get wings, but I was like, I don't think I can actually reach them, you know? Totally packed, and I was like, this is fantastic. So I hope to, you know, see folks there again and bring some of my other staff.
We'll be around for the Take Back the Night. It's coming
That's
up
it.
in April, so I think a couple of us plan to come up. I think I might come up and just check it out. Because my university actually never had one, which I was always kind of curious when we talked about it, but I'd like to see it.
So again, our hotline, 366-5000, confidential questions. Totally appreciate being, you know, able to come here today and talk about some of this, you know, this difficult stuff. But the best way through is being informed, knowing your options. So thank you.
Thank you.